It's an inside look into what life is like for people in Aleppo and across Syria. Molly Crabapple, author of Drawing Blood, a contributing editor to Vice. She's reported from inside Syria and from refugee camps inside Iraq and Turkey. And you've been in touch, my understanding, with folks in Aleppo, in fact, with one of the doctors today who used to work in that hospital.
I have. So this attack on a hospital is part of a pattern of attacks, not just on hospitals, but on schools, on marketplaces, and on civilian infrastructure that has been a hallmark of the Assad regime since 2012. Just a few days ago, Center for the White Helmets, the civil defense people who dig people out of bombed-out buildings, was targeted by the regime, and 5 people were killed.
It seems that obviously the horrors of ISIS, part of which you've documented, you've done some amazing reporting with someone who lived in Raqqa under ISIS rule. Those have been very well documented in the West, partly because ISIS enjoys publicizing and videotaping. This kind of thing, the just daily brutality of the Assad regime, the children that it continues to murder, has been less publicized because they're less interested in having the world see it. We're seeing a little picture of it now.
And also, while Assad is the greatest threat to Syrian lives, he's not primarily interested in killing people with first world passports.
Right, exactly. And so there's less of a sense of that he is a threat here in the way that ISIS is. My understanding is that there was something like a ceasefire that had been put in place. There had been this kind of endless series of feints towards peace talks, the existence of peace talks that are going to happen. It's very hard to see that as any reality when you're looking at the footage of a MSF hospital bombed.
There was a sort of ceasefire put in place in late February. Large swaths of the country weren't included in it, and it was frequently violated, sometimes by rebel groups, but most often by the regime. However, there was actually a slowing in deaths, briefly. And at the same time, there was this amazing thing. There was a blossoming of these protests that were the sort of protests that you saw in Syria in 2011. These revolutionary protests that were anti-regime and also anti-Al-Qaeda, anti-ISIS protests.
The sort of roots of this revolution as a sort of truly, genuinely kind of small d democratic uprising against tyranny, folks whose voices have been essentially crowded out by the fact that they now live under a barrage either from the Assad regime or often from groups like ISIS, Al-Qaeda, or the Nusra Front.
Exactly. As soon as the daily killing was slowed just for a little bit, people again began to protest.
You talk a lot, you're in constant contact with Syrian folks, whether they're in refugee camps or whether they're in Syria itself. What do they want for the future of their country?
Oh, God, I don't think that if you're speaking about a civil war, you can talk about what any one group wants.
But the people you talk to, I mean...
The people that I talk to primarily are people who, no matter how disappointed they are with the opposition or no matter how angered they are with the actions of certain armed groups, are people who are primarily against the regime. And most of them want an end to the killing, to return to their homes, to return to their country, and to have a democratic society. But that's not all Syrians. No. That's not... I don't think that anyone could make a statement as to what all Syrians wanted. No,
and in fact, the factions are so manifest at this point. But I think it's just important to remind folks that there is really this core of Syrians who have a vision for what a post-Assad democratic Syrian regime would look like, and they are living extremely difficult lives. Molly Crabapple, thank you very much.